around the corner on the back side, towards the side. In the lobby, the bathrooms are open. Should you need them, feel free to get up and use the bathroom. If you haven't already done so, we use the platform called SCORE. Your students should be pretty well versed in it. But if you haven't looked at the portal or signed up for the parent aspect of the portal, that was one of the handouts we gave you tonight. We'll be talking a lot about the college application process through SCORE, but our scholarship database is also within SCORE, and our information on how we send transcripts and letters of recommendation. So really everything that we're doing from the guidance and application process is through SCORE. That is spelled S-C-O-I-R, like the European version of SCORE. So you want to make sure that you take a look at that and sign up for that portal if you have not. It's important to know also there are checklists for 2- and 4-year colleges in there. So if you're wondering what the process looks like for applying and what to do when, that is helpful information that's in there. Additionally, we're at the time where a lot of students have visited colleges. Some are still visiting colleges in their fall open houses. Students do receive 3 excused absences for college tours. There is a form, it's a purple form, that's in the Student Support Service office. We do ask that if they are going to visit a college that you fill it out in advance, that the school counselor signs off on it so we can make sure it aligns with the programming and has the programming that students want. You also sign off on it because they'll miss the day of school and we need your permission for that. And then we do need something from the college that proves that you did visit that college. So a lot of times they're now online booking, so that's sufficient in letting us know, and then something from being there. And then if you highlight what's great and what isn't great about the college, we'll be able to help narrow down that form. It's super helpful for us. All school counselor contact information is available at the back. So if you're wondering who your child's school counselor is and how to reach them, please make sure you take that. We will be sending out information through SCORE, so please be on the lookout as we hit different timelines and different reminders. That's coming through SCORE. And that is it for me. The good stuff is coming from Ryan, so I'm going to turn over the microphone to our in-house expert, our guest, our family member and speaker. So Ryan Forsythe. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ryan Forsythe. It's a pleasure to meet you if I haven't met you. Tonight is certainly a unique night, being a couple days away from the incident that happened on campus. And I just want to take a moment, seeing as I happen to be in the school and a brand new parent to this school, the parent of a freshman, to say thank you to the administration and the guidance staff for what they've done over the past couple of days. It's always jarring when you have a real incident like this, for the family, for the friends, and I tell you, for someone that's brand new to the school, that barely knows how to get in and how to check in at the front office, to get a message like that was really scary. But it is really nice to know that this school did a great job in these past couple days, and so I'm thankful for that. My name is Ryan. I am the parent of a Monty Tech student. I'm the parent of 3 kids, and I'm the parent of, I'm the parent of one person. One person is my wife. Her name is Joanne. If you see her, do not tell her that I almost told you I was married to more than one person. Joanne and I are residents of Winchendon, and our son is a freshman here. If anyone has any guidance on which shop he should choose, please, for the love of God, let me know, because you all seem to understand them. This is very new for me. Let me see who's here tonight. Who here is a senior in high school or the parent of a senior? All right. Anyone not a senior? Juniors, sophomores, freshmen? Okay, a couple. Very good. So for those of you that are seniors or parents of seniors, tonight is going to be the perfect night for you. You're going to get a lot of information that's very applicable to you at this moment. If you are the parent of a junior or a sophomore, this is great information for you to know, but most of this you're going to use during that senior year. And so knowing that you all, most of you are seniors, that's fantastic. One more question before we get started. How many folks here have sent a student to school, to college before? How many folks have sent a college student off? Okay, maybe a tenth of you or so. I'm not going to ask them to put up your hands again, but if you recognized who had their hands up in the air a minute ago, become friends with them. because they've done this, they know how it goes. Oh, all of them are shaking their heads. You cannot be their friends, I'm sorry. I tried to make a connection for you, it failed. So tonight, our goal is to share with you information about financing a college education to make it a little less scary. You may not be scared, but I promise deep down, your 19, 18, 17-year-old is having major jitters about what's going on. Their jitters usually don't involve dollars and cents. They involve making friends and finding the right program and feeling like they belong. But for many of us who are the parents of students, the financing matters very much. And so tonight we're going to talk about how to make that college education as affordable as possible. Let's start with one baseline assumption. College is an investment. It's an investment in oneself. By spending your time, 4 years, 2 years, a significant amount of time educating yourself beyond what's required, you're choosing to go on for a further education. Why do we do that? Well, we do that to invest in ourselves. And what's the way in which we invest? Best invest. Buy low, sell high, right? So tonight, we're going to learn about how to make the education as affordable as possible, because it's going to pay off with a higher education and greater earning potential in your student's future. So, let's get after it. First, a little bit of information about the organization that I represent tonight. I do work at Worcester State University, but tonight I'm not here as Worcester State. I'm here as a volunteer with the organization that our guidance director mentioned, and that is MEFA. The Massachusetts Educational Finance Authority is a quasi-state agency whose entire mission is bringing education information and financing of education information to Massachusetts families. So they exist for programs like this, so that you as a Massachusetts resident will have as much free information as humanly possible so that you can make educated decisions about education. MEFA has a lot of information that is free, accessible, online, and so if you are a screenshot taker, feel free to take a picture. If you're a note taker, check out those handles over on the right, because MEFA is going to offer you a lot of information. It is all free. It is not tied to anything. It doesn't obligate you to anything, but it simply provides information to help make these next few steps of college education easier. And so we'll talk a little bit about some of the resources that MEFA makes available to you as we go through the night. Our real goal tonight, though, is to go over some of the information that you see right here. What is financial aid? Where does it come from? How much could I expect? How do I become eligible? How do I apply for financial aid? So tonight we're going to go through all the steps that are involved in making financial assistance more available to your student so that they don't have to pay as much for that investment in themselves called college. We're going to start with a quick note about last year. Not many of you put your hand in the air with the question of who's sent a student to college before. But if you happen to have been at a Christmas party or a backyard barbecue and any of your friends who have sent students off to college said, "Oh my God, this experience is awful. It makes no sense. I'm not getting any financial aid." Well, last year, the federal government kind of messed up. They changed the entire financial aid process and the financial aid application last year for the first time in decades. And in doing so, they broke it. And so last year was a really bad experience. If your student is working with your guidance staff, they probably remember that from last year. Well, the good news is, this year, for those of you parents of seniors going into freshman year, we expect the FAFSA to no longer be broken. Specifically, they have come out and announced that the FAFSA is going to be available, the application for financial aid is going to be available on December 1st. That already is better than last year, because it's available nice and early. And we'll talk about some of the specifics as we go through tonight. We're going to start with the kinds of financial aid that are out there and where that financial aid comes from. So let's start with the basics, really basic. Financial aid is money that is given to a student that helps them pay a college bill. Right? So college costs money. If you go to Mount Wachusett Community College, the cost of that college is probably $9,000 a year. If you go to Harvey Mudd College, it's an awful name, isn't it? If you go to Harvey Mudd College, it's $90,000 a year. right? The same thing between buying a low-priced car and a Cadillac. So different things that cost money to go to college. But financial aid is money that's given to the student so that that whole bill doesn't have to be paid by you. So if you're going to Mount Wachusett Community College for $9,000, but you receive some of the kinds of financial aid that you see on the screen, then maybe you don't pay $9,000 out of pocket. Maybe you pay less. And our goal tonight is to help you understand all these kinds of financial aid so your student can get as much as possible. So the three major types of financial aid are grants and scholarships, which is free money. It's a gift. It's money that's given to the student, just like a gift. Here you go. It's got a bow on it, and it's not expected to be paid back. That's very different than a student loan, which is exactly what it sounds like. Money that is lent to your student to pay the college bill now, but it's a loan, so it has to be paid back someday. And then the last kind of financial aid is work study. How many folks have heard of work study? You've heard that term before, right? Work study is, everybody knows that that's a way in which students can get a job on campus. When they go to be a freshman, they can go work in the library and earn some money. But not everyone knows that that employment that happens on campus is often called work study, and it's a kind of financial aid. And so when we talk about financial aid tonight, we're going to talk about all three types. The kind that's just given to us, the kind that's lent to us, and the kind like work study where you have to work to earn it. I will mention quickly that the loans and the grants and the scholarships that you see here on the screen, these are monies that are given to you to help you pay that college bill. Work study, on the other hand, does not pay the college bill. Instead, work study is an offer, an opportunity for your student to work while they study, work on campus. And when they work, they earn a paycheck that goes in their pocket or in their bank account. That's really good for extra costs, right? Books, that clothing that they need in the middle of the semester, pizza, other things. It's definitely not for the bill. It's for pocket money. It's for spending money. I'm going to pause here and reiterate what our guidance staff said. Please ask questions. As we're going through tonight, if you have questions, I encourage you to ask. And just like our guidance staff said, if you have the question, it's very likely someone else in the room does too. Yes, sir?
With the federal work study, what's the tax implication?
Very good. On federal work study, what are the tax implications? It is full employment for tax purposes. So if a student has a work study job and is earning $15 an hour, and over the course of a year aggregately earns $3,000, that is $3,000 of taxable income, and the college that they work for withholds that tax, just like for us. Very good. Other forms of financial aid, the things that you see on there, are not taxable. The scholarships, grants, and loans are typically not taxable.
Is work study payment paid in a way that they would know that you're trying to pay the bill?
Is work study paid in a manner that a college would know that you're trying to pay the bill with it? Typically, and this is a couple times tonight, we're going to say usually or typically. In this case, typically, colleges will set up work study the way I described it. And that is, when you work, you get paid. Meaning you get a paycheck or you get a direct deposit into your bank account. And now that money belongs to the student. And if the student wants to turn around and pay their student bill with that, that's absolutely their prerogative. But if they don't do that, and they choose to spend it on dominoes, that's also their prerogative. So it's up to the student to decide where that money goes. It's almost always going to be paid to them first, not to the bill. All right, let's keep going. So we're going to jump right into the worst topic first. We just covered a number of different kinds of financial aid, and some of them sound really good, right? Grant money, scholarship money, it's free gift money that you receive with no strings attached sometimes. But then we talked about loans. So we're going to talk about this one first because nobody likes talking about this one. We're going to get it out of the way at the beginning. Student loans are exactly what they sound like, money that's lent to the student to pay for college. Now there are many student loans out there. If you bank at Bank of America or Citizens Bank or Athol Savings Bank, then you have the opportunity to go into that bank and say, I want a loan for college. And it's very possible they will give you one. They will give you a student loan, one made for college. It might have an interest rate of 10%, 11%, 12% interest because it is borrowed from a bank. What's on the screen in front of you here is a student loan that is the best student loan. And why do I say that? Well, let's start right here. The student is the borrower. How many of us think that a 16, 17, 18-year-old could walk into Bank of America, say, I'd like a loan, and they'd be approved, right? Because it doesn't happen. They don't have credit worthiness, they don't have a debt-to-income ratio that works, they don't have collateral. A 17-year-old can't borrow a loan. But with this loan, they can. And why is that? Because the federal direct loan is lent, serviced, and guaranteed by the federal government. And the only eligibility criteria are that a student must be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, and that they must go to college in the United States. That's it. If you go to college in the United States, and despite the fact that you're 17 with no credit history, you can still be eligible for this loan. Now you can see there's limitations. Freshman year, you can only receive a certain amount, sophomore, junior. So you're not going to pay your whole student bill with this loan, but this is a good way for students to borrow if that's right for your family, and to do so in such a way that it is a good loan. Why do I say it's a good loan? Well, students can receive it without a credit check. The interest rate is low. Currently for the loans right now, it's at 6.53% fixed. That is lower than the kind of student loan that you would get at a bank or a credit union, and it is fixed, so it's not going to change. Now that fixed rate, it changes every year for future loans. So if you take out a second loan for sophomore year, the interest rate might be a little higher, might be a little lower, depending on what the prime rate does. But that is a fixed rate for the life of the loan, and the loan is not repaid until after college. Not all other loans. If we went to the bank and took out a personal loan right now to pay for college, or a home equity loan to pay for college, we could do that. But the bank would typically expect you to begin repaying sometime shortly after disbursement. Not in the case of this loan. In the case of this loan, the loan is lent, the student pays off the college bill with it, and then the loan is not paid back until after college. Now there are different types of direct loans, and they are right here, subsidized and unsubsidized. Later we're going to talk about applying for financial aid and becoming eligible for financial aid. In order to receive this kind of financial aid, loans are financial aid, in order to receive this kind of financial aid, you do have to apply and be eligible. And depending on your level of eligibility, which we will talk about later, you might be offered, your student might be offered, a subsidized direct loan or an unsubsidized direct loan. What that means is, an unsubsidized direct loan has the 6.53 interest rate that begins accumulating right after disbursement. So if you get that loan in freshman year, 6.53% starts accruing through freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, and all the way through repayment. But in the case of a subsidized loan, the interest rate is paid for the student while they are in school. So even though the loan has a 6.53% interest rate, there's no interest for those 4 years that you're enrolled, or if you go on to your graduate degree, 6 years or 7 years, the interest is paid for you. Now we'll talk about how you become eligible for that better one. Don't we all want no interest loans, right? We'll talk more about how we become eligible for that in just a moment. Now let's talk about where the financial aid comes from. Well, the direct loan that we just talked about, we know that comes from the federal government. They lend it, they guarantee it, they service it for you, but there's other forms of financial aid that come from the federal government as well. Pell Grants, for instance, are one of the largest free forms of financial aid, gift aid, grant aid, that is offered in the United States. It's called the Pell Grant, and it comes from the federal government. In Massachusetts, we're very lucky because we live in a state where the state has decided that education is so important not only for the individual, but for society, that they have decided to pay for college for many Massachusetts residents. So you can see, up in the top right-hand corner, the state of Massachusetts offers financial aid. Next, colleges. Colleges and universities will sometimes offer their own financial aid. When you apply to Babson College and you get accepted, you get that first acceptance letter, maybe it arrives in November or December or January, it might come with a scholarship offer, a scholarship to help pay down part of the cost of Babson College. That is a form of financial aid that comes from Babson, and so it is actually from the college itself. Now, colleges can also offer grants, they can offer their own loans, and we'll talk about the different kinds of aid that can come from colleges in a few moments. And last but not least is there are 100 other places that financial aid can come from. And in most cases, those are called scholarships. Now, scholarships can come from a local organization. Think of, let's see, somebody in the back, one of our guys, yell out a place that offers a local scholarship around here. The Lions Club. The Lions Club of Fitchburg, Lions Club of Leominster, they might offer a scholarship. The nice thing about local scholarships is the scholarships that are offered around here are offered for students at this school. And so what your guidance staff does for you is they're going to put information about that Lions Club scholarship, and that Kiwanis Club scholarship, and that Friends of the Library scholarship. They're going to put that information into SCORE for you. So that SCORE system that is right here at the school is going to have a list of scholarships. Now right now, it is October. There's not going to be a lot out right now. But in November and December and January, that SCORE system is going to start to get filled up with scholarships that are available for Monty Tech students and are available from local agencies right here. Now some of those scholarships are going to be small, might be $500, maybe $1,000. But $1,000 is better than no $1,000, right? And those local scholarships are typically for people right here in your community. So you don't have a lot of people you're competing with. I typically go to high schools and hear about local scholarships that are not given away each year because there aren't enough people that apply for them. So I'm going to encourage you to pay close attention to that SCORE system in October, November, and December. Watch for those local scholarships. Encourage your student to apply for them. Typically they don't take too long to do so, and they might end up with $500 or $1,000 in their pocket. Additionally, there are national scholarships which are listed in the websites that are in the bottom right-hand corner down here, MEFA Pathway and FastWeb. Now, if you or I went onto our phone right now and Googled scholarship, I promise you, you would get 335,000 results. And half of them are real scholarships. And the other half of the Google results are scams that are trying to steal your information. So why does MEFA and FastWeb provide scholarship searches when we all have Google? Well, because these two services curate the scholarship list for you. They only list scholarships in there that are trusted, that they know are actually offering you money and it's worth your time to apply for them. And some of the scholarships in here are the big ones, right? The Nike scholarship and the Reebok scholarship and the Kentucky Fried Chicken scholarships. And these might be $10,000, $20,000 scholarships. Now, $20,000 is pretty darn attractive. And it's not just for people in your community. Usually these large scholarships can be applied for by students all over the country. And so while these scholarship searches are really important, and there's sometimes big bucks to be had in there, they're usually more competitive. So we encourage your student to be selective. Go in, use the MEFA Pathway or use FastWeb to find scholarships that you are more likely to be considered for. These searches will help you find things like, I want to be a nursing student, and I live in Massachusetts, and I like theater. Well, you might find a scholarship that's for nursing students who perform surgeries on stage. And there you go, now that scholarship is just for you. That one's more likely for you to be considered for than the scholarship that is for someone that does automotive technology. So those searches are there for you for the big national scholarships, and make sure you check SCORE here locally for your local scholarships. Yes?
If you get a grant or a scholarship, is that something that you get every year? Or is it something that you apply for? Is it something you're eligible for?
Great question. The question is, if you receive a grant or a scholarship, do you receive it each year? Is it renewable? Does it come back every year? Or is it just for 1 year? And you've heard this answer before, it depends. There are some scholarships that will be awarded for just 1 year. Local scholarships are often like that. If you receive $1,000 from the Lions Club might not plan to give you $1,000 every year. Whereas if you receive the President's Scholarship from Babson College, well, that might actually be renewable. Maybe it's $5,000 every year for 4 years. The deal with those renewable scholarships is there's usually renewal criteria. You have to do something to keep it. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes, but the short answer is it depends on the scholarship. Yes, ma'am. Is there a limit to the number of scholarships you can apply for or receive? The short answer is no, there is not a limit to the number that you can apply for, and there is not a limit to the number you can receive. However, if you receive $100,000 in scholarships, first of all, congratulations, let me know, remember the little people. If you receive $100,000 in scholarships, that will limit the amount of other kinds of financial aid you can receive, because the federal government will not give you extra grant money if you have too much scholarship already. So does that mean that you shouldn't do it? No, $100,000 is better than no dollars, but it could have the potential to reduce other forms of aid. All right, let's keep going, folks. All right, now we're going to talk about two different kinds of financial aid. These are little vocab terms. The first one is merit-based aid, and next we're going to talk about need-based aid. First is merit-based aid. So the different kinds of financial aid that you can be offered, grants, scholarships, loans, this kind of financial aid could be awarded to you for a meritorious reason, right? Something about your student is impressive, and therefore you've been offered this award. This could be a scholarship for good grades. A good grades is an academic merit scholarship. If you have a 4.0, you might get the scholarship just for having good grades. And to the question that was asked earlier about renewability, that scholarship that's for good grades might require you to keep up good grades, right? If you get the 4.0 scholarship, they might say, you must keep your GPA up at 3.5 while you're in college. If you do, you keep it every year. If you don't, it might go away. Another kind of merit scholarship might be an athletic merit scholarship. If you throw the thing or move the thing or run the thing faster than anybody else, then a college might want you to do that thing for them. If you're the best field hockey player, the best quarterback, then maybe you could play for that sports team and receive a scholarship for that purpose. These are very popular to talk about at backyard barbecues. These are a little less likely to actually become eligible for, because there's a couple reasons. One, Division I schools, Division I and II schools are the only colleges that can give out athletic scholarships. So if you're attending the University of Michigan, The Ohio State, the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, any of these Division I schools, you can receive a scholarship there to play sports. But if your student is considering attending a Division III college, which is many of our colleges, whether it's Fitchburg State or Anna Maria College or anywhere else, if they're Division III, they cannot offer you an athletic scholarship. There's still sports, and you can still play, but you can't receive a scholarship for sport. There are other merit-based scholarships, such as artistic ones. If you play the tuba the best and you want to go into a marching band for one of those big schools, they might give you a scholarship for that. These are all forms of meritorious recognition. You've done something that's impressive, and they're offering you that scholarship. Now, just like it says, these sometimes do come with those strings, so you want to make sure that you're following through on whatever the college needs or wants in order for them to be kept. The second kind of financial aid, just went through puberty there. Excuse me. The second kind of scholarship, second type of aid is need-based aid. Now, this is completely different than merit-based aid. Merit-based aid is based, again, on something you did, right? You have been successful at something, the tuba, the football, the grades. Merit-based aid is a reward for your success. Need-based aid has nothing to do with what you have done and everything to do with your financial neediness. Now, would anyone in this room, don't actually raise your hand, would anyone in this room raise their hand if I said, who in here has no financial need? Right? Nobody. We're about to go send a student to college. There's plenty of financial need. But this need-based aid is not based on our opinion of our financial neediness. It's based on a calculation of financial neediness that comes out of a financial aid application. Now, we're going to talk about that application in a minute. We're going to talk about how that need is determined in a minute. But just think about your financial neediness and how it might compare to someone else. If your family has an income of $500,000 a year, do you think that that family has more or less need than a family that makes $50,000 a year? Less need, right? Higher income, less need than a lower income family. So when we do the calculations, when we do this explanation in the next few minutes about how that works, Just generally think about that. Need-based financial aid is for your more financially needy families based on a standard calculation that includes things like financial assets and financial income. Now you can see some of the different need-based forms of financial aid that are up there. Keep in mind that these forms of financial aid, while they are based on financial need, they do require students to be successful. So financial need is calculated, right? All right, we've determined that Ryan has financial need. We're going to give him a grant because he needs help paying for college. But if Ryan then goes into college and doesn't complete any of his courses, fails them all, skips them all, withdraws from them all, well, that financial aid is going to be taken away. And so while this is all financially need-based, and this is what we'll spend a lot of our time talking about tonight, the student does have to be successful, academically successful in college. All right, we have talked about the kinds of financial aid and where it comes from. Now we're going to move into applying for financial aid. There are applications, there are 3 kinds. We'll talk about all of them. And we're going to talk about how you actually insert yourself into the financial aid process that starts here in a couple of months. So let's get going. First, we're going to talk generally about the timeline. As we began tonight, our guidance staff pointed out that right now is the time that students are looking at colleges. You're making that college list, maybe. Maybe your student is already filling out college applications. And pretty soon you're going to start to get those college decisions back. College might let you know in December or January or February that you have been accepted. That's the admission process. Now that admission process ends around May 1st, when your student's going to decide which one of these many colleges that I got accepted to will I actually go to. Well, during the same time as that timeline, we have our financial aid timeline. Our financial aid timeline begins sometime soon. We'll talk about exactly when, but it starts in the late fall, early spring. Excuse me, late fall, early winter. And it starts with applying for financial aid. After the application, you get that financial aid package, the amount of financial aid that you're eligible for, and that usually comes in January or February or March, in plenty of time for you to look at it before your student makes that ultimate decision around May 1st about where to go. Now those timelines are important because when a student's applying to college, many colleges will let you apply on time and let you apply late. So if there's a college application deadline that says you need to apply by February 1st to be considered for our college, well, if you're applying to Harvard, they mean it. If you're applying to a nursing program anywhere, they mean it. But if you're applying to the English program at Fitchburg State, they might let you apply after February 1st. That's a normal thing for colleges to do, sometimes accept those late admission applications. However, colleges almost never accept late financial aid applications. And that's why this slide tells you that the deadlines that colleges set for financial aid are typically unwavering. If they say they want that financial aid application by February 1st, and it comes on February 2nd, that can mean less financial aid eligibility for your family. So, the timelines are really important. Down here at the bottom of the screen, there is a link to the College Application Manager. This is a free resource that's available online. You can download it right now. And all it is something that helps you organize all of this crazy information about the 10 colleges that she's considering right now and the different financial aid applications that are required. Feel free to check out that application manager. It's a really nice tool to keep you organized and keep you on track to meet all those financial aid deadlines. Now we're going to talk about the 3 different financial aid applications. The first one is the FAFSA. How many folks have heard of the FAFSA? Heard of it before? Okay, almost everybody. So the FAFSA is an acronym for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Anyone want to guess how much it costs to fill out the free application for federal student aid? It's $0. If you are on a website that's charging you $65 to fill out this application, you're on the wrong site and they're trying to steal your information. The only place you fill out the FAFSA is right there, FAFSA.gov, FAFSA.gov. Not FAFSA.com, not FAFSA-R-Us, only FAFSA.gov. If you go to FAFSA.gov, you're going to be able to begin to fill out that financial aid application, the first one that is required by every college for every student. One more time I'm going to say that. The FAFSA is required for every student at every college. So whether your student is going to go to Westfield State nearby, or they're going to go to UCLA on the other side of the country, public school, private school, community college, every single college requires the FAFSA for financial aid consideration. Some colleges require other ones as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. The FAFSA allows us to provide information about our family, financial information, information about how many people are in the household, all kinds of information, so that we can be considered for that need-based financial aid that exists out there. The different Pell Grants and loans that we've already talked about. This is the application that gets us there. Now the FAFSA is only an application. Think of it like back in the day when you would walk into McDonald's to apply for a job and fill out the piece of paper. That's what this is. It's an application. The FAFSA is not people. The FAFSA is not a government agency. The FAFSA is just an application. So we're going to fill out this application with our information. We'll cover what information in just a moment. And we're going to fill it out with information about the student and about the parents, or in some cases parent, and we'll talk about which parents in a moment. When we submit this information, we're giving it to the federal government, who is then going to give it to all of our colleges, and that's how financial aid is determined. We're going to talk more about that as we go through tonight. First, I'm sorry, that picture's over there. It looks like the font has changed. First, in order to fill out your FAFSA, you're going to need a username. The FAFSA's username is called an FSA ID. FSA ID. An FSA ID is needed for everyone that is going to be filling out the FAFSA. So, if your student is going to be applying for college next year, they will need an FSA ID to fill out the FAFSA. That student's parent or parents are going to need FSA IDs. We're going to talk about which parents in just a minute. But that means that every student is going to need at least 2 FSA IDs, one for the student and one for the parent. So if you can start doing this right now, the FAFSA itself is not available to be completed until December 1st. But before December 1st, you can go ahead and secure this username, secure this FSA ID. Again, one FSA ID for the student and at least one FSA ID for the parent. The FSA ID is available on studentaid.gov. I'm sorry that URL got cut off. If you go to studentaid.gov, you'll be able to search for FSA ID and hop right on there to apply for the FSA ID for yourself. If you already have an FSA ID because you went to college before and you have one from back then, it is still active. It is your FSA ID. As the person that you are, it belongs to you. So you can use it now to help fill out the FAFSA for your student, and now your student will just need a new FSA ID. When you do go ahead to apply for your FSA ID, you can do that tonight if you want. You can do it tomorrow, anytime before December 1st, because that's when you're going to want to fill out the FAFSA. That FSA ID can be applied for, like I say, now. And when you go to do so, you are going to put your information in, click submit, and there will be a waiting period before you get it back. It's typically 2, 3, 4 days. And then once you have that FSA ID back, that's your username. Now you're able to access the FAFSA after December 1st. So what information are we actually go?
You have a question?
We have a question, right? Yes. Love it. Great question. The question is, when you're filling out the FAFSA, do you put one parent or both parents? And do you have to put both parents? And I think your last question was, is there a certain income threshold that is met in order to be eligible for financial aid? If you don't mind, I'm going to hold all those questions for just a minute, because the answer is coming up. Is that okay? Yes. Yeah, good question. The question was, the FAFSA was previously available. This young lady started it, and she's wondering if when it becomes available again on December 1st, will the old information still be there? And the answer is, unfortunately, no, that information won't still be there. FAFSAs are able to be started. You can go into them and stop and save your progress and then go back. But that progress is only saved for 45 days. If it gets to 46 days, the federal government deletes it all and you have to start over. So if you started it, you're almost definitely going to have to start over when you go back December 1st. Yes?
For that ID, if I went to college a really long time ago before the internet, how will I know what my ID is?
Great question. If someone went to college and used financial aid a good long time ago and maybe doesn't have an FSA ID, or I'll add to your question, if you don't remember your FSA ID, you can go to that same website, studentaid.gov, where there's an option to both apply for an FSA ID and look up an old FSA ID. So you could start by looking it up. If you have one, you'll see it there. If you don't, then you'll apply for a new one. Sir?
I actually have to leave my son, but I will get all the information. If you are self-employed, an S corp, and that transfers over to your tax returns, how does that affect it?
If you are part of an S corp or own your own S corp and have income that is associated with your tax return, how is that treated by the FAFSA? Good? The short answer is whatever income that is taxable to you, typically the wages and or other income lines above the AGI on your 1040, any of those income are included in the FAFSA. So whether it's S corp, private, wage from regular employment, interest income, any kind of income is typically captured in the FAFSA. Sir? Good question. The question is, what if one of the student's parents is on disability? It's basically the same answer. Different kind of income, whether it's taxed or untaxed, or partially taxed or lightly taxed. If it's income, it goes on. Yes?
If you have more than one child going to college next year, do you fill out the FAFSAs, or?
If you have more than one student going to college the next year, do you fill out 2 FAFSAs? This one's not an iffy one. This one is a yes, you do. Every college requires a FAFSA from every student in order to be considered for financial aid. And if you have 2 students going to college, the college is going to expect a FAFSA from both of them, separate FAFSAs. The FAFSA does belong to the student. The parent puts information on it, but it belongs to the student. So if you have 2, you need 1 for each. Sir? Yeah, the question is, if you have more than one in college at one time, is that considered in the way in which you're considered for financial aid? The short answer is no. That is new, by the way. For decades, all the years that I have been doing this, multiple students in college meant that your eligibility for financial aid was increased based on those multiple students. Well, last year I told you the federal government changed the whole process. Compliments of our elected officials, folks. And one of the changes that they made was that multiple students in college does not change a family's eligibility for financial aid. Please don't blame the messenger. Absolutely vote in November, because that's how change happens, folks. Yes, sir.
Do you fill out forms every year, or just when you enter college?
Thank you. The question is, do you fill out a FAFSA every year or just your first year? And the answer is every year. So if you're going to school for 4 years, you'll fill out 4 FAFSAs. If you're going on to medical school, God help you. Yes? Yeah, the question is, based on the fact that you're applying for financial aid every year, does that mean that you are receiving financial aid just for that year? And the answer is it depends. With some kinds of financial aid, they are very much tied to the single year based on that single application. So if you apply for this year, you get this amount, and next year you apply and you get a different amount. But there are other forms of financial aid, like the renewable scholarships that we were talking about, where those renew at the same rate every year as long as you meet the eligibility criteria. So short answer, unfortunately, is it depends on the different kinds of financial aid. Yes, ma'am. That's a pretty impressive question. The question is, if you receive federal work study, which pays you a wage and therefore is considered income, does that affect your financial aid in future years? That is a brilliant question. I don't think I've ever got that one. The short answer is it does. However, work study is typically this much, right? Students earn $2,000, $3,000 a year in work study because you're working 5 hours a week in the library or 6 hours a week in the athletic center. You're not making $1 million. And so if you have $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 of extra income, that's not going to drastically affect your eligibility for financial aid in a future year. But technically the answer is yes, it's included, it can affect it, but it's just not that likely. All right, let's keep, yes. I will try. If I'm not able to do this quickly, we can absolutely say, oh, look at that, this might work. Hey, look at that. There you go, folks. There's that full website so you can apply for the FSA ID. Another question right there. So the question is, if you have a cooperative experience that has a payment associated with it, meaning you're doing a co-op and you're being paid, is that included the next year as a form of income that has to be considered in the financial aid calculation? The short answer is it depends. The longer answer is it depends on the way in which the co-op pays you. If they pay you as a wage, that is a taxable wage, then that is reported as income. If they pay you as a cooperative stipend or a practicum stipend, then that is typically not taxable, typically not reportable in the FAFSA. So it depends on the way in which the co-op pays you. Well, let's keep going, folks, because we got a lot to go to, and many of these questions, you know what, I'm going to take one more question because he looks super friendly. And then after that question, we're going to keep going. Sir. Is there a limit to the age of the parent where the parent might not be required to complete this? No, there is not. So we're going to talk in a minute about which parents complete the FAFSA, and you'll see that some parents complete it and some don't, but there is no accounting for the age of the parent. No. All right, let's keep going, folks. So what is reported on the FAFSA? When you go in and complete the FAFSA starting December 1st, what are you going to include? Well, you're certainly going to include general information about the student, name, address, zip code. It will ask for social security number. This is one of those times where you have to just swallow your concern about privacy and include the social security number. If you do not include a social security number, and it has to be the student's, not yours by accident, if you don't include the student social security number, your FAFSA will come back rejected and you will not be eligible for financial aid. So we're going to include name, address, social security number, and other things as general information. We are going to indicate what the student's citizenship status is. The citizenship status is something that here again, you make sure you want to complete, especially if you are a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident. U.S. citizens or permanent residents are eligible for most kinds of federal financial aid. If you are someone that is not a permanent resident or not a citizen or not on some select types of asylum, then you typically are not eligible for federal financial aid. The state of Massachusetts, on the other hand, does make financial aid available to people that are on certain visas and students that are undocumented. So there's a whole other process. If you are an undocumented student or someone here on a certain kind of visa, please see me afterwards. Very complicated. We'll talk about it just for you. But for most students that are applying as U.S. citizen or permanent resident, you do want to make sure you include it on the FAFSA because your citizenship or residency is required for eligibility. You're also going to list on the FAFSA the colleges that your student is considering. In October, no, we're filling this out in December. In December, your student's college list might be 10 colleges long, might be 8 colleges, might be 6 colleges. Whatever number of colleges your student is considering, you're going to list all of them on the FAFSA. And the reason we do that is because this is one financial aid application that's going to go to every college your student is considering all at one time. And that gives all 10 of their potential colleges the opportunity to consider you for financial aid. So that means you're sending one application to 10 colleges and you're going to receive back 10 different financial aid offers. One from each one of those 10 colleges, and that's how you're going to help make that financial affordability decision in the spring. Parents are included, as I said, on the FAFSA. We're going to include income and asset information for the student and income and asset information for the parent. The details of those is coming up, I think, on the next slide. But first, let's talk about which parent or parents completes the FAFSA. First, if the student is part of a family that has biologically or adopted parents who are married, then both parents' information must go on the FAFSA. If the student is part of a family where the biological or adoptive parents live together, regardless of whether they're married, then both parents' information goes on the FAFSA. If the student is part of a family where the parents are separated or divorced, this is legally separated or divorced, then the only parent, the only biological parents or adoptive parents' information that goes on the FAFSA is the parent that provides more than 50% of the student's financial support. If the divorced or separated parent that provides more than 50% of the student's support is remarried, then the one parent, the one biological or adoptive parent's information goes in the FAFSA, along with the new spouse's information. And last but not least, legal guardians are not required to provide financial information on the FAFSA. This does include legal guardians that are family members. So if a student is being raised by grandparents and the grandparents are legal guardians, those grandparents are not required to provide their information on the FAFSA. The FAFSA only collects financial information for biological parents or adoptive parents. In the case of a student who has a legal guardian, if they also have a biological or adoptive parent, the biological or adoptive parent's information is still required. And I'm going to pause there because there's almost always questions. Yes, ma'am?
What if that biological parent?
Good question. The question is, what if, in the case of a student who perhaps is being guarded by someone legally that is not their biological or adoptive parent, but the biological or adoptive parent who continues to exist is missing in action?
Yeah,
Not available. Not available. What do we do in that case? Remember, the FAFSA is only an application. It doesn't know our circumstances. It doesn't know unique circumstances like that. What the FAFSA is going to ask for is information about the student and about the person or people that are financially contributing to their support. So that means that it's going to ask for biological or adoptive parent information. Now, if we don't have that information, we don't know where the parent is, or they're not providing their information, you can absolutely put zeros, right? Biological or adoptive parent is not providing any support, zeros. However, when that happens, that FAFSA is going to arrive at all your students' colleges, all 10 of them. And all 10 of them are going to look at it and say, this student had $3,000 worth of income from their summer job last year and no other income to support them. And they're going to select that student for a process called verification, which is where now the student has to provide documentation to all 10 colleges about where they received their financial support. So, very long answer to what sounded like a short question. If the biological or adoptive parent is out of the picture, you can complete the FAFSA with all zeros. However, you will almost definitely be asked afterward to verify that information.
So I have a guardian form, and so when that comes back and it says, where else did you get your money? Where else are you? So then at that point, will our financial information then be part of the FAFSA?
Yes, in continuing the conversation we're having about biological adoptive parents being out of the picture, If that college comes back and says, where do you get your financial support from? Will the legal guardian's information be required at that time? The short answer is, I can't answer that for you. That is a decision that the college gets to make. At Amherst College, a college that meets 100% of financial need, an $80,000 school that meets 100% of financial need, that college is almost definitely going to ask for every ounce of information about your family. At Mount Wachusett Community College, maybe not. So it's going to depend on the college. Yes?
So if we have to list our step parents, would we also prepare for this on that as well, or is that two separate things entirely?
Great question. So if I'm filling out the FAFSA and I have a step parent, we just learned that we have to provide that step parent's information on the FAFSA. The question is that also the case for the common application? And the short answer is no, not necessarily, because the common application is an application for admission. It I think it suggests parental information be included, but it's not something that is going to demand that you list specific parents. The FAFSA, on the other hand, is very specific based on these criteria. Okay, that is often the most complicated topic we're going to cover. So that was pretty good, only about 6, 7 questions, not too shabby. If we have more questions about parents, we can always come back to this, it's pretty common. The gentleman in the back asked about the number of students in college and whether or not that is considered in the calculation of financial aid. I answered, unfortunately, this year and last year it is not. I am sorry for that. However, just to make it worse, just to rub salt in that wound, the FAFSA is still going to ask you how many people are going to college next year. It's also going to ask you how many people in your household are being supported by either the student or the parent that provides the financial support to the student. So think for a minute, in your family, who provides the financial support to your student? Okay, think about that for a second. Is it mom? Is it dad? Is it mom and mom? Is it mom and step-parent? Think about who that is. Now, if those people support someone else, provide more than 50% of the financial support for someone else, that person is considered in the household for financial aid. Grandma, grandpa, Uncle Eddie who needed a place to stay last year. Though anyone that is financially supported by the financial support system for that student, they are considered, quote, in the household. And you want to include them. Because while the multiple students in college aren't considered, everybody in your household is. Think about that for a minute. If all of us together made $50,000 a year, and your family had 10 people in the family, and my family had 2, well, your family's going to get more financial aid, right? So you want to make sure you're accounting for every person in your household that receives financial support. That's you, that's the kids, that's grandma, that's grandpa, and that's Uncle Eddie. Getting ready for Christmas vacation, anybody? Uncle Eddie? Yeah, there you go. Oh, you have a real question. Go ahead. Just to define what you think is a blended family. Help me understand your question. And are the 2 parents married? Okay. So the question is, in the case of a blended family where the parents are not married, and they are presumably not biological or adoptive parents of the student going to college, right? Okay, they are, one of them is the biological, the other one isn't. Yep, but they're not married. Okay. The question is, in the case of blended families where the 2 parents are running the household and providing financial support to everybody, but the parents are not married and they are not the biological, both of them are not biological or adoptive parents of the student, how is the financial support of the whole household included? Short answer is this. The person is going to go on the FAFSA for the student is the biological or adoptive parent. If that person's not remarried, then that spouse, that other adult in the household is not being included on the FAFSA, and therefore his or her financial support of the household isn't considered. So if his or her financial support is supporting grandma or 2 or 3 kids, they are not in the household. people that are in the household are the people that are being supported by the biological or adoptive parent that's included on the FAFSA. That was a good one. That was a complicated one. Okay, let's keep going. What else is included on the FAFSA? Well, we're going to include a lot of income and asset information. First, income information. We're going to be looking back at the calendar year of 2023. This is for people that are applying for financial aid for next year. We're going to put our thinking caps on and go back to 2023. Pull out those old tax returns that are down in the file cabinet and find out what the income was for the student and the parent or parents from 2023. That income information is going to come, most of it, right off of your tax return. There is also a tool in the FAFSA that will reach out to the IRS for you, grab the information from 2023 and pull it into the FAFSA. So that income information on your tax return, that's included. Additionally, untaxed income is included on the FAFSA. So anything that does not appear on your tax return, think of tips, think of side jobs, think of all the different forms of untaxed income that it does not appear on a tax return is also supposed to be entered on the FAFSA. Now, how does the federal government or your college know what your untaxed income is if it isn't on a tax form? I don't know. But you're supposed to include both taxed and untaxed income. That goes for both the student and the parent, and again, we're looking at 2023. Additionally, we're going to include asset information. This is information about anything that the parent or the student owns that has value. You see some of the very obvious examples listed on the screen: savings accounts, CDs, investments. All of these things have value. Some things that aren't listed on there, I don't think, are buildings, property. If you own property, that has a value. If you own an Airbnb, that has a value. If you own a strip mall, that has a value. If you have a trust fund, anything that has value is considered an asset for financial aid purposes and is included on the FAFSA. Now, there are a few exceptions, and you see that there, let me see here, in the third bullet. If you own a home, if you own a residential building that is your primary residence, if you own a house, that primary residence is excluded from the FAFSA. So that is an asset, right? You own it, it has value, but that is not included on the FAFSA. But again, if you have another house, like an Airbnb, well, that one is the asset. But the primary home is excluded. Retirement is excluded, and life insurance is excluded. So any retirement, be creative. Whatever you can think of for retirement, you don't even have to ask. If you think it's retirement, it's excluded. So Roth IRA, excluded. Any kind of retirement plan, any kind of pension plan, anything that has value that is for the purpose of retirement, retirement is excluded, and so is life insurance. Child support received is absolutely considered an asset. I am sorry, this one hurts, but for the parent that is providing the financial support for that student to pay for college, remember, the other parent typically is not included on the FAFSA. However, the child support that is received by the parent that is providing the financial support is counted on the FAFSA as an asset. And the last thing that I'll say on this before I take the couple of questions is debt, unfortunately, is not included in any way on the FAFSA. So if you have medical debt, if you have credit card debt, any kind of, especially revolving debt, anything like that is not captured on the FAFSA, it's not considered in any way. The only way that debt appears in the calculation of your assets is when you have debt against something that has value. So let's play that out. If you own a piece of property, you own an Airbnb, and it has a value of $400,000, but you have a $300,000 lien against it, or a mortgage, or reverse home equity loan, or any kind of debt against that asset, then you subtract the debt and the net value of the asset appears on the FAFSA, not the gross. So that's the only place that debt's going to appear, when it's debt against the value of an asset. Any revolving debt or other debt is not included. We're going to start in the way back. question is if you have multiple kids in college, if it's not considered in the FAFSA, but your number of kids in college changes, does that affect anything? And the short answer is no, it does not. Whether you have one or two, or it changes from 2 to 3, it is not being counted in any way. We actually are wondering why this question is even asked, because it's not in the formula in any manner. Great question. The question is about child support, and right here you can see that child support is considered an asset for the parent that is providing more than 50% of the support for that student. So for the parent, if they are receiving child support or any other marital support, past marital support, think alimony, any kind of support that is being received by that parent that's providing the support is considered an asset. It does not matter whether or not it's tied to an individual, I was going to say student, an individual child. So if you have 2 children, but you're receiving child support just for one of them, that is still considered an asset. Sir? Good question. The question is, if you have so the first question was, is retirement included on the FAFSA? The answer is no. Retirement that is being saved, retirement that is expected, retirement that is due to you in the future is not included on the FAFSA in any way as an asset. However, if you are already retired for any reason, disability or otherwise, if you're already retired, you're now receiving an income from that, and that's considered income. It's not an asset, but it is an income if you're actually receiving the disbursement from it. Sir?
Only if it's not specifically listed on there, but in the case of a vehicle, it would be considered an asset. Upside down, this is a vehicle at a 0 value.
Yeah, thank you. If you have an asset that you are upside down, if you're in the red, if you have more debt against that asset than the value of that asset, do you include it on the FAFSA? The answer is no. Because it can't have a negative value for FAFSA purposes, but it can have a 0 value. And if something has a 0 value, then for this purpose, it's not an asset. And so you would not include it. I should be clear, the FAFSA does not ask you to itemize your assets. It asks for an aggregate amount for all of your assets sort of put together. I've never tried that one out, but if something has a negative value, it might take away from the value of a different asset. I've never played that one out before. That might be the only reason you would include it. Yes, ma'am. Yes, thank you. The young lady asked a question that I didn't answer, I'm so sorry. Is there a certain income that is considered eligible for need-based financial aid or not? And the short answer is there is no one specific dollar amount that makes you eligible or not eligible for financial aid. Very often the question is, I make $75,000 a year, will I get financial aid? Well, the answer is it's not just based on your income. It's based on income, assets, size of the family, assets net value. So there's a lot of things that go into that formula, and it's not just $1 amount. What I can tell you is that in the state of Massachusetts, families that make below $85,000 a year are typically eligible for enough financial aid, need-based, grant-based financial aid, that makes all public colleges and universities free. That doesn't mean it covers the cost of housing and room and board, but for tuition and fees, if a family makes below $85,000 a year, the state typically gives enough grant-based aid to completely cover the cost of that. Above $85,000, there isn't a gradation, there isn't a scale that I can give you, but that's the closest thing I can give you to an actual dollar amount. Yes, ma'am. Is it pre or post what? Good question. Again, this is not a perfect formula, right? The 85,000 is the dollar amount in income, which is adjusted gross income, wages and all the other things and deductions, but it certainly does not account for the assets. If you make it $85,000 but you have $3 million in assets, well, you might not be eligible for financial aid. So the best answer I can give you is no answer, because there is no $1 amount. The only thing I can share is that families that have limited assets and an income of $85,000 are typically eligible for a good deal of financial aid. In the back.
If a grandparent has a 529 plan account for the child, is that considered a student asset?
Love it. If the grandparent has a 529 plan for the student, is that considered an asset? I love the way you asked that question, because that really gets to the heart of who owns the asset. A 529 plan is an educational savings account. Others are U-Plan, U-Fund, there's all kinds of things out there. But 529 is a really popular educational savings account. If the student or the biological or adoptive parent that supports the student has a 529 plan, that is an asset. But if someone else has an asset that helps pay for the student's college, like a grandparent, that's not an asset, because the grandparent's information does not go on the FAFSA. So grandparent assets, even if they benefit the student, do not go on the FAFSA, whereas parent and student assets, including 529s, are included. Good questions. All right, let's keep going, folks. We're going to switch gears now. We just talked about the FAFSA. Which colleges are is the FAFSA required at? All of them. How many times do you fill out the FAFSA? Do you fill it out every year? Yes. Do you fill out a FAFSA for every student? Yes. Is the FAFSA required at community colleges? Yes. Is the FAFSA required at private colleges? Yes. Okay, now everything we just learned, throw it out of your brain. Because we're totally switching gears, and now we're talking about a completely different financial aid application called the CSS profile. The CSS profile is not required at every college. The CSS profile is required at some colleges. So if I just told you the FAFSA is required at every college, and the CSS profile is required only at some colleges, does that mean that some colleges want 2 financial aid applications? Yes. So the FAFSA is going to be completed by you every year for every student for every college, no questions asked. But the CSS profile is only going to be completed for those colleges that require it. And that does mean that some colleges will get 2 financial aid applications from you, the FAFSA and the profile. The profile is not free, like the FAFSA. You can see the costs on the screen. It is not a federal government document. It's a private document by the same folks that give us the SAT. And so you can go on to the CSS profile website, cssprofile.org, to complete it. The CSS profile is available earlier than the FAFSA. When is the FAFSA available? December 1st. The CSS profile, on the other hand, is available now. You can go on and complete it tonight, if you'd like. It is only required, like I said, of certain colleges. Now, those colleges will be very overt in telling you that they require it. It's very important to them. So you can go onto a college's website and see if they require the CSS profile. Do a quick little search. It'll pop up, I promise. If you don't want to do it that way, you can also go to CSS Profile's website and see a list of all colleges that require it and see if your students' colleges are on that list. Now, the CSS Profile is like the FAFSA, but it is a different application that asks for much more information. Remember earlier we said we're going to provide general information about the student and income information about the student and income and assets about the parent, but we're going to exclude other things, right? What are we going to exclude? The non-supportive parent, the primary home, the retirement, the life insurance, right? We're going to exclude all that stuff. Well, guess what? The colleges that collect the CSS profile, they want it all. They even want to know about grandma and grandpa's 529 plan. They want, if a college is requiring the CSS profile, you're going to see that the information that is requested is really a whole picture, an entire encompassing look at every bit of a student's financial life, whether it comes from the custodial parent, non-custodial, grandparents, or otherwise. So the CSS profile is a little bit more robust, and it's a lot more information. Now, why would a college need 2 financial aid applications? And more importantly, why would they need all this extra information? Well, the CSS profile is typically going to be required of your more expensive institutions. Somebody yell out an expensive college. Harvard. BU and Harvard, good examples. Those are expensive places, right? However, The expensive colleges typically give out more financial aid. So if you're going to go to Harvard, first of all, the hardest part getting in, right? But if you get into Harvard and that price tag is $70,000, Harvard might give you $50,000 a year in financial aid, making it just as affordable as Pittsburgh State. Because private colleges, typically higher cost colleges, give more financial aid than lower cost colleges. And that is why those higher cost colleges want more information about you. They want the CSS profile because they want all the information they can about your financial picture. Yes, ladies? Why did the deadline for the FAFSA get pushed back to December 1st? Good question. Prior to 1 year ago, the FAFSA was typically available in October, but last year, we already talked about how the FAFSA was kind of botched last year and got really, really delayed. This year, the federal government expected some minor bumps in the road, so they just told everyone right up front, we're delaying it until December 1st. It's not going to be ready. Don't try to use it. It's broken. It'll be ready on December 1st. Other question? Good question. The question is, can you apply using the FAFSA before you go to college, or after you go to college, or anytime? And the short answer is, the easy answer is, the FAFSA is able to be completed at any time, because it's just an application, right? It's that paper you picked up at McDonald's. It's just an application. So you can complete the FAFSA starting December 1st, in December, January, February, March, April, May, June. You can complete it whenever you want. But your colleges are going to have deadlines. They want to receive it by a certain date. And every college's deadline is going to be different. So Nichols College might say, fill out the FAFSA by January 1st, but Clark University might say, I want the FAFSA by December 15th. So you can fill it out anytime, but if you fill it out after your college's deadline, you sometimes get less financial aid or no financial aid. One last thing before we leave the application topic, there are other applications out there. If you didn't think 2 was enough, believe it or not, there's more than that. There are college applications, college financial aid applications, that are specific to colleges. So we're still filling out the FAFSA, because we fill out the FAFSA for every college, but if you go to a college that is special and has its own financial aid application, right, the WPI financial aid application, then they will require that of you as well. So you just want to watch for that. There is no one place to go to tell whether or not a college has a financial aid application of its own. Unfortunately, you just have to check with the college to see if they have their own financial aid application in addition to the FAFSA. Yes? I'm so sorry, say that again? So the question is, can I include one parent's salary on the FAFSA? If your parents are your biological parents or your adopted parents, and they are married or living together, then both parents' information has to go on the FAFSA. If they are separated or divorced, then you can include the one that provides more than 50% of your financial support. Perfect. All right, let's keep going, folks. After you apply for financial aid, you're going to fill out that FAFSA, you're going to fill out that CSS profile. It gets electronically sent to your colleges. All 8 of them, all 10 of them receive it. It does not arrive immediately. It does not show up the next day. So if you click submit on the FAFSA website and you call your college the next day, just know they're not going to have it yet. The FAFSA actually goes to a federal processor in DC or Virginia. They process it and then send it to your colleges, typically 1, 2, or 3 weeks later. So you want to give it a little bit of time. Once your colleges receive it, they're going to review it and consider you for financial aid. We're going to talk in a minute about what that review looks like and how someone actually becomes eligible for financial aid. And your colleges might ask you for more information. A little while ago, we talked about that process verification, right? If they're not sure what's going on the FAFSA, they might ask you to provide documents to prove that the information that's on the FAFSA is accurate. If you get those kind of requests, please give us a document to validate what's on your FAFSA. You have to respond to that. If they don't get, if your college doesn't get a response, they will typically stop reviewing you for financial aid, and you might miss out on some good financial aid there. So you want to make sure that you've got that completed and you get back that financial aid award. Remember, the financial aid calendars and the admissions calendars are somewhat similar. You're going to get those admission decisions in January, February, March, and you're going to get those financial aid awards in January, February, or March, all with the goal of reviewing both where you're accepted and which one's more affordable to make your decision on May 1st. As I said, verification is a thing. It's like a financial audit. It's like an IRS audit for financial aid. They're asking you just to provide tax forms, divorce decrees, untaxed income documentation, if you have it, to show that the information you put on the FAFSA is accurate. It's not super fun, but it is something you definitely want to get done if you are asked for any additional documents. Every single college is required to have a financial aid office. This is legally required by the federal government. So your college, all 10 of them, all 8 of them, whatever your student's considering, they all have a financial aid office that provides support to you. That's their job, and they're not allowed to charge you a penny for it. So if you want advice, if you want help, if you want to ask a question, they exist at every college. They have to be called a financial aid office. Some colleges fool around and call it like financial services or something. But you can always find them, whichever college you're going to. Make sure you use them to make sure you're getting the best bang for your buck and the most financial aid possible. We're going to move into a different topic now, and that is how the financial aid decision is made. We've applied for financial aid now. You've got your application in. The college has got that financial aid application, and now what do they do with it? Well, first we're going to learn a couple of vocabulary terms. The first one is cost of attendance. If I asked you at a barbecue, what do you think the cost of attendance at college is, you would tell me how much the bill says, right? That would make perfect sense. But in financial aid, cost of attendance is more than that. First, the cost of attendance includes the things that are billed to you. So colleges, like I said, cost money. They're going to send you a bill. And on that bill, it's going to include tuition and fees. If your student lives on campus, there's going to be charges for housing and meals. Maybe they might charge you for other things too, for parking or for other things, lab fees. The college is going to charge you things. But cost of attendance is not just what the college costs. It's not just what the college charges you. It's also the indirect costs that are associated with going to college. Think about when we go to college. First of all, we have to get there, right? The cost of traveling to college, especially if you're going to college far away. Those planes, those trains, those automobiles, they cost money. And so there is a transportation consideration. In order to go to college, you typically have to buy your own books and your own supplies, your own notebooks, your own biology books. Those things have an expense. So books and supplies are included in the cost. And last but not least, a general consideration of personal expenses. So when we add all of these things together, we get what's called the cost of attendance. Somebody yell out a college that your student is considering. Northeastern. Does anyone have any idea how much Northeastern costs? Is that for real? Oh, $95,000 a year. All right, okay, we're doing this, $95,000 a year. So, do we think that includes housing and meals? Oh, well, there you go, it's a bargain. All right, $95,000 a year in direct costs. Tuition fees, room and board at Northeastern is $95,000 a year. And we're going to add, let's call it $10,000 in other costs. Travel, books, supplies, the bedding for my new dorm room, all that stuff, right? All of that then costs extra. So the actual cost of attendance for Northeastern is going to be $105,000. See how that works? Now that cost of attendance is really important. That's our first vocab term. We're going to come back to that in a minute. Our second vocab term is Student Aid Index. Student Aid Index is a number that's produced by the FAFSA. It simply is a number that is used by financial aid departments to provide you with financial aid. It's not a number that absolutely determines what you're going to receive, but it's a number that's used. It's an index, right? You get this number and you use it as an index to determine financial aid. It helps colleges figure out what you're eligible for. Now, we all, when we apply for financial aid, get a Student Aid Index, an SAI. If your income and assets are $1 million, then your SAI is going to be high. If your income and assets is $20,000, well then your SAI is going to be low. right? See how that works? It's an index that's associated with your family's financial situation. So now, we're going to take the cost of attendance for a college and subtract the student aid index to come up with our financial aid eligibility. That's it. That's how colleges do it. That's the secret sauce. So in Northeastern's case, the cost of attendance is $105,000 a year, and the student aid index is whatever came out of the FAFSA for your family. So for my family, it might be $50,000. $105,000 for Northeastern minus my student aid index of $50,000 means I could be eligible for $55,000 in financial aid. If your student aid index is different though, let's say your student aid index is $25,000, well now it's 105 for Northeastern minus 25 for your SAI equals whatever that is, $80,000, math on stage is hard, $80,000 in financial aid eligibility for you. That's how it works. Now each college is then going to take your financial aid eligibility, the maximum amount of financial aid you could possibly receive, and they're going to put together a financial aid package for you. So now in this case, we're going to see a sort of a financial aid counselor at work. This financial aid counselor does not work at Northeastern. The cost of this college is $45,000, which means the real cost, the tuition and fees cost, is probably $30,000. Let's call this UMass Amherst. Right? UMass tuition and fees is probably what, $28,000, $29,000, $30,000? Add some indirect costs means their UMass's cost of attendance is $45,000. So UMass knows that. They know they cost $45,000, and they know that your student aid index that came out of the FAFSA was $5,000. So they already know that they could give you up to $40,000 worth of financial aid. So now they start going to work. All right, let's see what kind of financial aid we can offer to Ryan here. We're going to start with grants and scholarships, because I know he's going to love those. Here's $27,500 in free money, gift-free money. Now remember, UMass doesn't actually cost $45,000, does it? Nope. UMass costs $28,000, $29,000, $30,000. And they've already offered us $27,500 in free money. $29,000 price tag minus $27,500 in grant aid means that UMass is already down to $1,500 a year, right? Okay, let's keep going. Now they're going to offer me that student loan. Remember that direct student loan that we talked about at the beginning? Best student loan you can get for freshmen, it's limited to $5,500, and so they've offered it to me. Do you think I need it? Maybe not. I got a ton of grants and scholarships there. Maybe I just turned down that loan. Maybe I want no part of that. I don't need to borrow extra money if I don't need it. But they've offered it to me, so it's an option that I get to choose. They've also offered me work study. That's pretty cool. Now I get to work on campus. You can see it's only a little bit, but it's enough to get 5 hours a week to earn a couple of bucks and put it in my pocket. Does work study come off the bill? Usually not. Usually it's pocket money. It doesn't go on the bill. Then they keep going and they're like, oh, they gave up. So they could have given me $40,000 worth of financial aid, but if they gave me whatever this adds up to, $27,000 plus $5,000 plus $2,000. So they gave me $30,000 in financial aid. That is more than I need at UMass. This is a really affordable school now. Instead of having to pay $30,000 out of pocket, I've got $27,000 to cover most of it. I've got a little bit of loan if I want to cover the whole gosh darn thing and take out a loan, and I've got work study to pay the bill. That's how it works. This is how financial aid works. Now you're going to get financial aid awards from multiple colleges, right? Remember we're sending your FAFSA to all 8 colleges that your cherub is thinking about? We're going to get 8 different financial aid packages back. In this case, we're just looking at 3. We have spread these out across the kitchen table, and we're considering college A, B, and C against each other. Every single one of them costs $45,000. The SAI doesn't change. It's your SAI, so it's always 5, which means every one of these colleges could give you 40 grand in financial aid. And so College A got to work, and they're offering you, holy moly, $32,500 in grants. That's awesome. College A is wicked affordable, right? And almost no loan. Let's see, you get a little bit of loan there, that's okay, get a little work study. So College A really knocked it out of the park. They gave you the most financial aid possible. College C, they tried. They gave you a little bit of grant, but they didn't meet the whole need. So now that's College C's choice. They chose not to give you as much financial aid as College A. That's their choice. They get to do that. Maybe they didn't see that merit in you, that they wanted to give a merit scholarship. Maybe the financial neediness wasn't as much. Maybe College C just doesn't have as much financial aid to give. But it's possible that there's going to be a difference between the colleges that you receive financial aid packages for. Now, which one of these colleges is the most affordable? College A. Which one is your student going to fall in love with? Maybe. All right, let's keep going. Let's look at it differently. College A, B, and C, still all 45,000. Your SAI still hasn't changed. It's $5,000. You could get 40 grand from these schools, and College A, B, and C all tried, and if you look real close, they all gave you $35,000. That is pretty sweet. Now, they're all affordable. College A, B, and C. Doesn't matter which one she falls in love with, we can afford them all. But if you look close, most of College A is grants. College B is a little combination, and what is that? College C offered you that direct loan for the student. That makes sense, right? That's an affordable, good loan, makes sense. But the rest of the financial aid package is made up with parent loans. Do you want to take out a loan? This college is assuming that you want to take out a loan. Now, here's the really stinky news. Those parent loans aren't automatic qualification. You have to apply for that loan separately. You have to be considered for it and be eligible and awarded that loan. If you don't have a good debt-to-income ratio, if you don't have that credit that's eligible, makes you eligible for borrowing, you might not even get that. Now, if you're denied for $29,000 worth of loan, what do you have left at College C? You had a little student loan to pay a $40,000 bill. College C is not going to be affordable. And I want you to look out for this, because you're going to get colleges that assume, even College B is assuming that the parent wants to borrow. Now we're going to pause here for a minute to say, some families, the student does the borrowing, and some families, the parent does the borrowing, and in other cases it's mixed, and some families don't borrow at all, especially if they go to an affordable college. But you want to watch closely, because in College B and C's case, they're assuming that the parent's going to borrow. So you want to watch it close. Now we saw that in some of these cases, the colleges didn't give you enough financial aid to go all the way to what you could have got, right? So in many cases, you might have what's called unmet need, some additional financial need. That bill isn't completely covered. And so what do? In this case, this family has an unmet need of $5,000. The college gave them lots of financial aid, but there's just not enough to pay the whole bill. So what does the family do? Oh my God, is $5,000 going to keep my son or my daughter out of school? Well, I sure hope not. There's ways to address that. And they're typically these three. One is past income, if there is savings. If that 529 plan exists, you can use that savings here. If you just have regular savings, you can use that here. Maybe the student has some savings from that summer job that they can use to pay. We call that past income. Present income can be used to pay some of that $5,000, and that is typically something that comes out of a payment plan. Almost every college nationwide offers a payment plan. And it's very common for families to say, okay, I got most of the bill covered, but I just got that last $1,000 or $2,000 that I need to do. I don't want to take out another loan and accrue all that interest. I'm just going to pay it monthly. Great. So maybe we take $1,000 or $2,000 and break it up across 10 or 12 months, and now you're paying $100 a month, $200 a month to bring that bill down. And last but not least is future income. Future income is typically your borrowing, right? You're going to find an educational loan that helps pay this balance, maybe just a little bit, maybe the whole thing, but you're going to use that extra borrowing to pay off that bill. Now, once we get past those direct loans, those federal direct loans with a really good interest and the good repayment terms, well now for every other loan out there, we're on the regular loan market. So if you go into Athol Savings Bank, you can ask for a student loan, and you might be approved. You could ask for a parent educational loan, you might be approved or denied. You can also go to other places to borrow, like educational lenders like Sallie Mae or Citizens Bank or Wells Fargo. Any of these places will provide educational loans, but you're on the loan market, right? You're at the whim of the bank that wants to approve you. There are, of course, borrowing options, other borrowing options. You could consider equity, using any equity that you might have. A home equity loan is always an option. But either way, you're looking at borrowing in this last case, using future income to borrow now and pay later. Yes, sir?
Real quick, so let's say the unmet need, they go over all this stuff, and I'm assuming they can tell you what your unmet need is at some point in the spring or early summer, once they have it all out. Say it comes out at $8,000. Is that $8,000 due by day one of that school year, or is it something that you have to clear to zero before the start of the next school?
Yeah, great question. So if you receive financial aid to bring your bill down, so you're not paying the whole thing, but there's still a balance, right? There's still an amount left, an unmet need. When is that bill due? When do I have to pay that bill? Using any of these methods, when do I have to pay it? Most colleges are going to charge you based on whatever academic calendar they use. So 90% of colleges use semesters. That's 2 semesters a year. One that begins in September and ends in December, and the other one that begins in January and ends in May. Right? That's very typical at colleges to have 2 semesters. But you might find a college like WPI that uses trimesters, right? 3 terms. I can't even tell you when they start and end, but it's 3 throughout the year. Typically, your billing for that unmet need will match those terms. So if you're at a semester school, you'll get 2 bills. One in the summer that's due back in August, and one in the fall that's due back at Christmas. Happy holidays. If you're at a trimester school, then it's typical for you to receive 3 bills, in which case, whatever that unmet need is now split against 3 bills, and those are due at different intervals of 3. Good question. Yes, ma'am. Could you say that one more time?
So the tuition, like the money that's like left over, is that freshman year of college or is that split throughout the years?
Very good, okay. So the amount that's due, the amount that's left over to pay, is that due freshman year or is that due over the course of your 2 or 4 or 6 years of college? And the answer is that the bill is always based on the semester that you are enrolled. So in this case, if it's a balance of $5,000 for the year, and you're going to a semester school, 2 semesters, then you're going to have $2,500 due before the start of the first semester, $2,500 due before the start of the second semester. Then in sophomore year, we're going to do it all over again. You're going to get a new bill with new financial aid, with a new balance that might be split across your 2 semesters. Same thing junior year, same thing senior year. Yes, sir. Yes, so the question is, does the bill have to be paid before the education starts? The short answer is yes. If you are paying the bill out of pocket, right? You've got a $5,000 balance and you've just decided I'm writing a check. That check has to be written before the semester begins. If, however, you're using some other form to pay it, such as the payment plan, if you're breaking up this remaining balance and paying it over the course of months, sometimes those payments are due before the semester begins, and sometimes they're due after the semester begins. But if you're paying out of pocket, if you're just planning to wipe away the debt by writing a check, then it is due before the semester begins. Yes, ma'am. Yes, so in the scenario here, the question is the amount that the family is paying out of pocket really the unmet need and the SAI? Yes and no. Remember that this is calculating your total financial aid eligibility on an amount that includes the actual bill from the college and other indirect costs that aren't charged by the college. So in this scenario, while the student could have received $40,000 in financial aid, but only received $35,000, that's actually okay, because this college doesn't actually cost $45,000. It costs, this is UMass, this is $30,000. And so the financial aid that was received, even though it didn't meet all the need, it still covers the bill of the college. So this, yes, This is something that the family would pay if the college was really expensive, but in this case, because the student received a good amount of financial aid, it's going to cover the whole bill. Okay, this is my favorite slide. My favorite slide because it's a thinking slide. It's something to get you thinking about the way in which you want to talk to your student about college. If you are a family that talks openly, for instance, about money, or about what borrowing is, or the credit worthiness of the parents, then I applaud you. I am impressed and I applaud you. That is not the way I grew up. My parents wouldn't tell me what they made if my life depended on it. They would not tell me if they were in financial crisis, because that was something you protected the children from. If that's the way your family is now, I'm going to encourage you to break tradition, because it's hard to talk to your children openly about college, the cost of college, the ability to pay for college. However, that conversation about what can we afford, what can we borrow, are mom and dad even eligible for loans? Those awful conversations can happen in October, and they're uncomfortable. If that conversation happens in May, after she's already bought the sweatshirt and fallen in love with the place, it is heartbreaking and it is guaranteed to bring on tears. So, what MEFA suggests, what I suggest is, in the fall, while those college lists are being made, you don't count out the expense of college. Let him consider the $60,000 a year school. Let her consider the $80,000 a year school. Let them consider the $90,000 school. It's okay to consider the expense of college in the fall. Because, like we said earlier, you might get more financial aid at the expense of college. But have the conversation now about what is affordable. If you fall in love with that $80,000 a year school, and they come back with a financial aid package that we're not going to get until March, that says you got $10,000 in financial aid, that college is going to cost $70,000 a year times 4 years. Is that affordable for your family? And do you want to tell your son or daughter or child that after they have already fallen in love with the school? So these are the hard conversations to have now. What is the reasonable price for our family? What is the net price that we can afford? Who is going to do the borrowing? In some families, it's known. You talk openly about it. When you go to college, you're going to have skin in the game, so you're going to borrow. Has anyone actually ever said skin in the game? That's like my favorite term. Yeah, it's actually my least favorite term, but lots of people say it. If you want your student to borrow, that's great. That's right for your family. If you want your parent to borrow, because you don't want, how many have ever said, I don't want my son saddled with debt? Yeah, that's my other favorite. So if you want to do the borrowing, that's awesome too. Whatever's right for your family is what you're going to do, but it is something to be worth talking about in the fall, not in the spring. There are other ways to also make things affordable. We're going to talk about some of them here in a few moments. This is also something to think about, and you can again talk about this openly with your child if you choose to do so, that there is an obligation perhaps for parents, especially if there are multiple children. So having that hard conversation. Remember, your teenager's pretty self-reflective and they're usually a little self-centered. So they might not be thinking about what the cost of their brother or their sister is. They're thinking, I fell in love with that school in Manhattan, right? So you want to have that conversation now. Be honest, open, be ready to talk about the fact that number 2 and number 3 are possibly going to go to college too. I can't be taking out big loans for the first student. Lots of other options that you see up here on the screen, lots of other conversations to have. Again, great to have in the fall, harder in the spring. I told you I would give you some resources. They start here. Some of the things that are available out there now make college really affordable, but they challenge us to think about college differently. And let's start with Mass Educate right at the top. We are in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which just made a change in August of 2024 that all community colleges are free for almost all students. If anyone didn't realize that, that is settling in right now. Mount Wachusett Community College and Greenfield Community College and Quinsigamond Community College, all of them are free. You don't pay. How does that work? Well, as long as you're a Massachusetts resident, you have to be a Massachusetts resident for at least a year, and attend a community college in Massachusetts, and do not already have a bachelor's degree, and make what's called satisfactory academic progress, which means you're making progress on completing courses, the college is free. You go there for no cost. This is a form of financial aid, right? So financial aid comes from the federal government and the state government and the bill still gets paid. You still get a bill that says $9,000, but in this case, all of it is paid for with financial aid. Now, if community college is on your list, if that is in your sphere of possibility, wow, 2024 just became awesome for you. Because community college used to cost money and now it's free. If community college is not in your students' consideration, I encourage you to at least put it in the conversation. Community college these days is different than it was in the 80s and the 90s. In the 80s or 90s, if you took a course at a community college, there was absolutely no guarantee that that course would go with you to your bachelor's degree someday. That's not the case anymore. In 2024, the mass transfer system, which is bound by state law, requires that all community college students who transfer to state universities or UMass campuses in the Commonwealth receive 100% credit for the courses they complete at the community college, for free. So that means if you want to go to UMass, to the Eisenberg Business School, right, one of the most respected business schools in the New England region, you can go there for only the cost of junior and senior year, half price, because all of your community college credits transfer, and you only do your junior and senior year at UMass. So that's Mass Educate. Mass Reconnect is extremely similar. It provides free community college for people over the age of 25. I don't know why the program is different, because Mass Educate covers people that are 25 and younger, but they are programs that make college free. The Mass Grant Plus expansion is a huge new financial aid program that began in 2023, which makes makes state universities and UMass campuses free for commuters that are typically under that threshold of $85,000 a year. So that is not a guarantee of free. The community college is free. Doesn't matter how much you make, doesn't matter anything, it's free. The Mass Grant expansion, which is applicable at state universities and UMass campuses, makes UMass campuses and state universities free for commuting students for anyone that typically receives a Pell Grant. The Mass Tuition Equity Law. Earlier I talked about undocumented students and how undocumented students or minimally documented students are typically ineligible, not eligible for federal financial aid. Well, again, the state of Massachusetts made a change in 2023 that undocumented students can be eligible for state financial aid and in-state tuition at state universities, community colleges, and UMass campuses. That's huge. That's a giant savings for undocumented students. The only catch is, for students that are minimally documented or undocumented, they must have attended a Massachusetts high school like Monty Tech for a minimum of 3 years. If they've attended for 2 years or 1 year, they are not eligible, but attended for 3 or 4 years, then tuition is in-state tuition and you are eligible for state financial aid. Mass transfer we already talked about. That's the transfer of credits between community colleges and four-year schools. And the last thing I'll mention is tuition break. We haven't talked much about in-state, out-of-state tuition, but we are all Massachusetts residents, so we get in-state tuition, lower tuition, at the state universities and UMass campuses. You pay less at those campuses because you live in Massachusetts. If your friend from New Hampshire tries to go to Pittsburgh State, they pay typically $7,000-ish more dollars than you each year because they're from another state. Well, that goes the same way reciprocally, right? If you want to go to another state, if you want to go to UNH or UConn or UMaine Orono, those are out-of-state schools, and you sometimes have to pay out-of-state rates. However, the tuition break program offers significantly reduced tuition rates at those out-of-state schools. So if your student is considering UNH or UConn or UMaine, they might be able to go to those colleges, those public colleges that are out of state that typically charge you more. They might be able to go to for really close to in-state rates. And I encourage you to check that out looking at Tuition Break, which is available on the NEBI website. It's not on the screen, so I'm going to read it out loud if you want to write it down. The Tuition Break information is available at nebi.org, N-E-B-H-E. N like Nancy, E like Echo, B like boy, H like hotel, E like echo. Nebi.org. Last but not least, a couple free resources. The FAFSA can be complicated. Financial aid can be complicated. And so there are a lot of free resources out there to help you with it. If you have never done the FAFSA before and you go onto it for the first time, it can be intimidating. It looks like a tax form. So you want to make sure that you feel comfortable with what you're doing, and these free resources will help you do it. First is FAFSA Day. FAFSA Day is a statewide effort that exists across Massachusetts that offers both in-person and virtual events where you could go to an auditorium like this, hear general information about the FAFSA, and then move into a computer lab in the back of the school or the back of a library and complete the FAFSA while financial aid professionals like myself are in the room to help you answer questions. That is also available in a virtual format. You can find all of the information about FAFSA Day at fafsaday.org. The second thing is Massachusetts Educational Opportunity Centers. These are storefronts. They're places that you go, like a business, and you walk into them and you make an appointment to get help with your FAFSA. If anyone has ever been to H&R Block, it's like the H&R Block for FAFSAs. You go in, you make an appointment, whenever your appointment is, you go back, you sit down in a cubicle, and you fill out a FAFSA shoulder to shoulder with somebody that really knows what they're doing. Completely free and available. Very conveniently, in this area, there's one really, really close. The Educational Opportunity Center that's closest to us here is in Leominster on Erdman Way, E-R-D-M-A-N, Erdman Way, and that is the same street that BJ's is on. So if you've ever been to BJ's Wholesale Club, right next to BJ's is the EOC, the Massachusetts Educational Opportunity Center. There's many more of them. At this website right here, you can see that there are EOCs in Worcester, in Springfield, in Boston, in Lowell, they're everywhere. But the closest one is over there in Leominster. Last but not least, MEFA Pathway is a free resource that you can sign up for real-time updates, in-time emails that will come to you to tell you exactly what you should be doing each month of this college search process. When does the FAFSA become available? That was weak. December 1st is the FAFSA available. The only person I heard was the person in the front row. December 1st, your FAFSA becomes available. Are you going to remember that after tonight? Maybe you will, but if you don't, MEFA will email you on December 1st and say, guess what, the FAFSA is available. They'll do the same thing when scholarship applications become available. They'll do the same thing when the National Candidates Reply Date rolls around next May. So if you want some guidance that's free and sent right to you, it's very real-time information, mefapathway.org. We've already talked about your calendar through the year. Again, the admission and financial aid calendars overlap quite a bit, but you're working towards getting those acceptances that your student wants and those financial aid awards that your student wants, all shooting towards the mid-spring when you're able to take a look at both the colleges they fall in love with and the affordability and make that decision together. This is something, if you want to take a snapshot of it, feel free. There's a lot going on in the slides, so we're not going to go through it all, but you know that we're working on both admissions and financial aid during the senior year, all towards the finish line of May 1st. This is a couple of other resources. If you do want some information directly from MEFA, you're welcome to give it a snapshot. I don't really know how you do 3 QR codes at once, but I wish you luck. This is great information if you want information from MEFA that's going to be, again, those MEFA emails delivered right to your inbox, or maybe you want to go over some webinars. This kind of seminar that we did tonight is available in a virtual format. There's also other webinars, like specifically about the CSS profile. If you want to really dig in on that profile that you're going to be completing for those higher cost institutions, there's nice webinars available for MEFA. You can do it right from home in your jammies. Last but not least, a couple other resources, including those social media links to MEFA if you do want to connect with them. MEFA is a quasi-state agency that is not affiliated with any college. So while every college has a financial aid office, you should feel comfortable contacting them and asking questions. At the same time, maybe you don't want to call the college. Maybe you want to ask someone else. MEFA is available on social, and MEFA is available by phone and email, where you can call up and just ask a question. They're not associated with a college. They will give you free expert advice on all things college costs and college financial aid. It's a great resource, something that not every state has. I encourage you to consider it. Folks, that is the end of our presentation. I'm going to be here for a few more minutes. So if anybody would like to ask any questions they don't want to ask in front of the whole group, feel free to come on down. As you're on your way out, make sure you say thank you to your guidance folks. They put on this program and do so much more. Thank you all so much. Have a great night.